What's going on, guys? Andrew Piluk Hockey here, back again with another video. Today we're going to be looking at some big name players, or just some players that the Toronto Maple Leafs could be linked to this offseason via trade. There is some really interesting names here, some pretty decent names in terms of star power. So we're going to get right into that. But before we start this video, I'd really appreciate it if you guys like this video and subscribed. I'm trying to get to 10,000, and of course I'm trying to get past that, but I do really appreciate all the support lately, and hopefully we can continue to build from here. So thank you guys so much. It really does mean a lot. So basically this is from the fourth period. Now I don't want to mispronounce his name. I always say David Pagnotta, but I believe it's Pagnotta or something. It's one of those two. I just don't want to be disrespectful. He does have some pretty big reveals or stories that have come out in terms of being able to be the first to something, like when the John Tavares signing happened in Toronto. He was actually the first account that had it. I was in the car on my way to make some collab videos with Post to Post, actually, and I had the laptop on there, and my sister had showed the phone to me, and she said, "Hey, it's reported that John Tavares just signed in Toronto," and it was that account, and he was the first one. And then Elliot Friedman picked it up or whatever. So he does have some credible sources, whether or not you want to believe him or not. These are names that he believes that are linked to the Toronto Maple Leafs. And we're actually going to start off with a pretty big name here. And to be honest with you guys, I'm kind of hoping that this doesn't happen. And I know some people are probably like, what? Seth Jones. Seth Jones apparently could be linked to the Toronto Maple Leafs. There's a few teams that are there. I would think Philadelphia is the front runner, and Chicago in terms of teams that are really making a push there. Winnipeg, I don't really see it. Same thing with Toronto. But all signs point to Columbus trading Jones this summer. Basically, it's what's being said here, and the fact that he needs another contract. Now, if you do look at him here, he's got one more year left on that $5.4 million contract, which, to be honest with you, is a pretty fair deal for him, considering if he was in a bit of a lesser role on a better team, this contract would probably be completely fine. He does have the modified no trade clause, so he'll submit a list of 10 teams he cannot be traded to. So that's something to look out for there. But looking at his numbers here, Jones has been a point producer in this past season, 28 and 56, 30 and 56. The Toronto Maple Leafs already have that on their back end with a guy like Morgan Rielly. But if they do move on from him and Hamilton's not the guy that they're going to end up going after, I wonder if the Leafs do circle back to a guy like Seth Jones. I just don't see why you would get rid of Morgan Rielly to get somebody who I don't feel like is as good as him. And I mean, you can go back and forth with that, but there are numbers to prove those theories. I do like Seth Jones. Again, he plays a lot of minutes. He plays a ton of minutes, actually. He's a workhorse for the Columbus Blue Jackets. I actually had another article that I was going to bring up here, but it looks like it's not loading properly. But basically, it was his advanced numbers. And in defensive zone and even strength and in power play time, Seth Jones has not been effective for the past 2 to 3 years. Hopefully this is going to work, but he hasn't been very effective. It's basically just charts showing that he is having a negative impact on the offensive ability. Well, he's having a slightly positive impact when it comes to the offensive side, but when it comes to the defensive side, he's actually coming in as a negative part. So again, that's just something that you guys can make an opinion on yourself if you feel like the Leafs should go after Seth Jones. I just don't believe that it would make a ton of sense. This next guy is somebody that I do believe that the Leafs should be very interested in. This is a team that is willing to make some moves here, it seems like, and that is the Arizona Coyotes. So as you can see there, Boston, Toronto, Edmonton, Florida, and Los Angeles would be the teams that he believes that Conor Garland is linked to. He's right now a restricted free agent, so how that trade would look, I'm not sure, but he has had some pretty good numbers, and his projection is going up for sure. So as of right now, it doesn't sound like the Coyotes or Garland are anywhere close to working out a contract extension, and teams believe Arizona will move him this summer. Now, the other thing I need to mention is I'm going to try to pull up their cap friendly right now. They do not have a ton of guys that scream, oh, like this team is going to be able to be a contender in the next couple of years. They have some really good young pieces, as you can see here. They still obviously have some good names here. I really like Dvorak. You can say what you want about some of the guys here. Lawson Krause as well. Clayton Keller, again, he's probably overpaid, but still a good player nonetheless. Phil Kessel, they're trying to move on from his deal, and if they can figure out a way only to retain a little bit of this salary, I could see them holding on to Garland, because he's definitely not going to come in at 6.8. But he is a guy that I think they would like to try to keep, but if they can maximize his value, he's only 25 years old, that would be something to look out for. So looking at his point totals, we're going to come down here. You can see he's progressively gotten better. Now, you're going to see he had the same point totals here, but significantly less games, only playing 49 this past season, 39 points in 49 games played on an Arizona team that wasn't all that good. They're kind of one of those teams where you feel like if they had a couple more pieces, they might be a little bit more competitive. But Garland is definitely a type of guy that I would look at if I'm the Toronto Maple Leafs. If you're trying to put together a deeper roster, you would have to see what his number comes in at. But definitely a guy that could solve a few of your problems, really. The Toronto Maple Leafs need depth. They need scoring, which is hilarious to me considering how much money we have invested at the top of our lineup. But the Leafs do need more depth. If a team like Montreal has a shutdown center like Danault that's going to take out your first line, sure, Nylander and those guys were productive. But what are you going to get from your third line? How are you going to be able to, can you play your third line as a checking line against that tough defensive matchup and they be able to compete with those? Those are the teams that are good. That's why teams like Tampa are so damn good. That's why, any deep team is going to have success. So the next name here is Rickard Rakell. Now, his price is probably going to be pretty expensive. The Ducks are definitely in one of those phases now where they're trying to sell off a bit of their talent here. Apparently, he's linked to Toronto, Pittsburgh, Edmonton, and Boston. His cap hit coming in at 3.789. After seeing that Arvidsson deal, I think the Leafs should be all over this. I think he'd be a little bit more expensive, but definitely a guy that I would keep an eye on. He's very, 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 very productive in terms of what he can do. Like, you just look at these numbers. I really like the way he can put up points this year. This past season was a little bit off, but I'm going to take the fact that all these numbers look pretty damn productive to me for what he's getting paid. And that 28 points in 52 games played on a much better offensive team like Toronto, you could easily see him in the 40 and maybe the 50-point range depending on where he plays. He's a very, very enticing piece, and I think the Toronto Maple Leafs should be all over him. Listen, it's just another winger that's cheaper that I think would make sense. Apparently Toronto was linked to Arvidsson before, but of course that trade didn't happen. Los Angeles ended up getting him, and now this article was posted before that, and Los Angeles was a possible destination. So pretty good guess here, I guess. The next person that the Leafs could be interested in is Darcy Kemper, and apparently they could be linked to him as well. He has one more year at a $4.5 million AAV, and Arizona apparently might retain some of it. So if we're looking at Kemper here, he's actually a pretty decent goaltender, but I don't know if the Leafs would want to spend close to that. And if they wanted Arizona to eat half of that salary, the price would definitely go up. But I think the Leafs need to find a goaltender in the $2.5 million range. His numbers were pretty good here, playing in 27 games played. That's probably where how many games the Leafs would want him to play. 30 to 35, I would imagine, is the max. 2.56 goals against and a 907. You could probably find goaltenders for cheaper at those numbers there. So it would be interesting to see if Toronto is going to go out there and try to make a deal for a goaltender this expensive, considering if I'm the Leafs, I'm like, listen, we can find goaltending with those similar numbers, but it's going to be cheaper. So how much money are you going to retain for us? But again, that's when the price gets a little bit higher. Now, this next team that I was going to talk about, I was setting up this video before an unfortunate tragedy happened with Columbus, and I know a lot of people have been talking about it. I honestly think that I don't really know if I want to talk too much about the in terms of this trade scenario because Columbus had a pretty deep selection of goaltenders, including the prospect that unfortunately just passed away. which my condolences to his family and the entire Columbus Blue Jackets family, because it's just a tragedy. The Toronto Maple Leafs could be linked to one of their goaltenders. But like I said, I'm not really sure if that's something I really want to touch on right now. So maybe that's something we can reconnect on. But just know the Toronto Maple Leafs are looking for a backup goaltender, and Columbus was probably one of the teams that they would be talking to. But now with what's going on, I would imagine that they're going to want to hold on to their goaltenders because of what happened. So we will move on from that. And again, like I said, my condolences to his family and the entire Columbus Blue Jackets family and their fans, of course. But this is what the roster roughly would look like, in my opinion. I haven't signed anybody. I didn't do anything. But if you're not bringing back Zach Hyman, the Leafs probably have about $12 million to work with, assuming Kerfoot gets taken by Seattle. So your blue line is intact. Like, you bring up Timothy Liljegren, you can make a small upgrade there. You could re-sign Bogosian. Let's just say you have just under $11 million in cap space, right? You bring up Nick Robertson, and Spezza and Simmons signed for cheap. So you need a backup goaltender and 2 forwards. You can get 2 really good forwards with like $8 million here, which, I mean, hell, that would help the team big time. Your team would be much deeper. You toss one of them on the left wing up here. You probably toss somebody on the left here or center or the right position here. You know, you get a good guy for your top 6. You get a good guy for your bottom 6. And then you probably find depth. And that's what the Leafs got to do. They got to find some good players that they can fill out this roster with. And then a nice little backup goaltender there. So it just all depends on what the market's going to look like in free agency, and it all just depends on what it's going to look like via trade. The Leafs could go out there and get a guy like Rakell who would fit in nicely in their top 6, and if he doesn't work out, you slide him into the third line, and he probably does just fine. He probably gets you that 35, 40 points, which for that price, you're taking that. You know, you could get a Conor Garland and throw him up there in the top 6. You need to be able to find ways to make these moves without hurting your future too much, and also without hurting your pocketbooks too much, because, I mean, you're dealing with an RFA and Garland as well. So very interesting things to think about. Thank you to the Fourth Period for this information. If you guys are new to this channel, make sure to like this video and subscribe to any of these players. And, like, are you going to entertain any of these players? Do you think that it's a good idea? Again, I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you guys for stopping by, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video or stream. Peace.